Lights on. Very good. Thank you once again. I want to again welcome all of you today and introduce myself, Paul Walter. I have been in sales and marketing for the better part of 30 years. That dates myself, I know. So I've been in environments where selling is important, and each one of us has also been in an environment where selling is very important. My goal today is to try to impart some level of comfort for each of you in your ability to sell yourself, especially in this environment that we have today in trying to find a career transition or career change. So try to find a little bit of comfort. And the best way, I guess, to start is by telling a little story. Back when I was about 15 and a half years old, and many of you may have had the same type of an experience, I was in driver's education. And I remember the first time after we did the behind the wheel and all the classroom training, and the first time that you got out and the instructor was sitting next to you, and probably like me, you had some of your peers sitting in the back seat behind you, and you got behind the wheel and the instructor said, "Okay, let's go." And you took your hands on the wheel and you shifted into drive and you put the foot on your gas and you maneuvered out of it, and you looked at the signs and you looked at the speed limit and you kept going and you checked your mirrors, because you know you have to check the rearview mirror, check side view mirrors, and you checked the rearview mirror because your peers are back there and they're watching you, right? And you remember the white knuckles? You remember how scared you were? Do you remember that fear that you had that all these other cars are coming and all of a sudden one cuts you off, and it's like, they're not supposed to do that. They didn't teach you that in driver's education, but they did anyways. And the fear there. Now, let's fast forward 20 years later, where you jump in your car, you throw a cup of coffee in your lap, you slam it in reverse, you go on a drive, you head down the road, you get on the cell phone, and you're listening to the radio at the same time, and you don't even think about which way you're turning, and you get to your destination. Why? Because you've learned and you're comfortable behind the wheel. So what I want you to do is take that experience that you had in driving and use it as an anchor to tell yourself that no matter what the difficulty is, no matter the challenge is in selling yourself, you have the ability to go out there and overcome. You've done it in driving. For those of you that are married, you've done it in selling to your wife. So you can overcome that fear and learn the skills necessary to be able to move forward into a successful selling presentation. So moving on, we'll talk about selling yourself. Sales. What is sales? It's often uncommonly known as, in an environment, especially retail, as an exchange of money for a product or a service. And in a sales environment, typically we think of being talked into something that we really don't want to have. Has everyone felt that at one time or another, whether it be, you know, buying a car, buying a house, or whatever that experience might be? You have this feeling of uncomfortableness that you're being talked into something that you really don't like. Well, if you go back into the history of sales, sales very clearly is an environment where it is serve. You serving people, helping people. And this definition I have up here, I want everyone to think about this because it's very, 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 very true. Sales is the process of helping people to make decisions which will add to the quality of their life. Their life, okay? Now, in a good sales situation, it really is a win-win situation. There's value on both sides. They're having value and you're having value. But this is an important definition of sales because we often think about an uneven exchange or something that we're taking advantage of. In professional selling, we're serving the customer. It's the process of helping people to make decisions that will add to the quality of their life. That's the definition. Now let's go into a sales mindset. Okay, let's think about mindset. I've got some pictures up here of some shoes. And I want to talk about the importance of thinking from the customer's shoes. Now, who's the customer? In the case of myself getting married, the customer was my wife. Okay? So I had to think from her perspective what she was looking for in a mate. That's the concept I want everyone here to think about today. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. Now, up here we have pictures of a lot of different shoes, right? There's a lot of different customers out there. you have to be able to differentiate the needs, the wants, and the desires of each of those customers. Where are they? So that when you present to them what you have to offer, you're thinking it from their perspective. Always put yourself in their shoes, and if you do that, you'll be much more effective in communicating what it is that you want to relate to them. So think from the customer's shoes. The sales atmosphere. We don't always think about it, but comfort, confidence, and trust. And we'll break these down into 3 different things. But comfort, confidence, and trust. These are the things that we all feel that are necessary in our lives in order to make that decision that will add to the quality of our life. So let's go to the first one here. We'll talk about comfort. Comfort. What is comfort in a sales atmosphere? It is something, does it fit? That's an easy definition. Does it fit? You know, if I take my shoe off, you know, and I say, this is a dress shoe, and it's a size 8 EE. I've got small feet but wide feet. And you know something? When I put this shoe on, it fits. It just, you know, I feel right. I feel good. If I was standing up here today in a pair of tennis shoes, they may fit, but they don't fit the environment. Okay? So think about comfort when you're talking to a prospective employer or someone else. Does what you're talking about, what you have to offer, does it fit what their needs are? Think about the fit, okay? And that could be culturally, that could be intellectually, that could be emotionally, and that could be skill set wise, okay? There's got to be a fit, okay? Confidence. Confidence, a couple of things up here. You know, do you exude confidence? And confidence talks more about value and strength. And this is where your STAR statements come into play. This is where your skill sets come into play. This is where your degrees may come into play, okay? But it's that confidence. It's what value do you bring to that prospective customer? But remember, it's not your value. Go back to the last one. In the shoes, it's value to the customer. Don't think that the value to you is important to the customer. Whoever that potential employer is, you have to think about it in terms of from their shoes what the value is. So you might have to do some converting. If you have an accounting background but you're applying for a job that's not an accounting background, maybe there's something, a skill set within accounting that can apply to that particular job set. So confidence is strength and value. Let's move on. Trust. Go to the dictionary and you look up trust. And there's a lot of different definitions about trust. In fact, in the fiduciary area, financial area, a trust is something that's set up by accountants and financial people to hold people's assets, okay? And it's that trust relationship is something about reliable, honest, secure, committed. That's what trust is all about. I heard an interesting statistic the other day. In fact, it was from a Dale Carnegie class. And the gentleman that was giving the Dale Carnegie class said that they interviewed managers. And the managers said that 83% of the people that worked for them did not follow through accurately on what they said they were going to do when they said they were going to do it. 83%. That's huge. That's the trust factor. Are you reliable? Do you show up for work on time? Are you consistent? Are you committed? Are you accurate in what you do? And my favorite, of course, this sign here, and I have this sign in a big poster that's been hanging in my office for many, many years. Picture of a tennis shoe with a tongue. The significance of that is, you ever hear the saying, let's walk the walk, talk the talk? Have you ever heard that before? Okay. That's extremely important when you're talking to an employer, that you walk the walk and talk the talk. If you say, hey, I'll give you a call in 2 days, you give a call in 2 days. I'll follow up with a note. You follow up with a note. If you say you're going to do something, then you do it. And I've always measured the people that have worked for me and the teams that I've been on by this litmus test. Do they do what they say they're going to do? Now, circumstances come up. We all understand circumstances come up. But if a circumstance comes up, you need to communicate that. If something happens that you're not able to follow up on a timely basis, like you said you were going to do, it's your responsibility, and this is that trust factor, that you get a hold of that person and say, hey, I said we're going to get together on Tuesday, something has come up, I'd like to reschedule that, and we'll reschedule for Thursday. How's Thursday at 2 o'clock? You're still being trustworthy, you're flexible in your time factor, but you followed through correctly in that trust factor, okay? Very, very important aspects. Comfort, confidence, and trust. Let's go back and let's go into the sales process now. And this sales process is not just for a career transition, but in anything in a sales environment that you want to look at. The first and most important part of any sales process is the prospecting factor. We all understand what a prospect is in a typical normal sales environment. Well, how does it relate to you in your environment? How do you prospect? Well, let's talk about some examples of prospecting. You can go out to career builders, you can go out to monster.com, you can go out to ladders, you can go to the job center. There's a lot of places you can go. How about networking? That's prospecting. How about cold calls? I'd be interested to say, how many people here have made a cold call on a company? There you go. That's the process. And in a sales environment, which we're all in, we call a sales funnel. I don't know if everybody's seen a sales funnel before. It's you have the prospects, and then you start to wheel them down until you finally get the sale at the end. You need a wide range of prospects in order to find that position that you're looking for to get that sales. So you need to continue to build your prospect list in any way, shape, or form that you possibly can. That's the start of the sales process. It's the beginning. If you don't have a list, you're not serious about looking at your career transition. You need to have a list to start with. That's very, very important. The second, contact. Now, contact is the first point of contact with that potential prospect. That can be what? A phone call. It can be an email. It can be, Claire, would you make a phone call for me? A referral. It can be, it could be a mass email. For that is, you can write a letter. There's a lot of different ways that you can make that contact. But that contact is finding out who you need to talk to, and then somehow communicating your desire to meet with that person. That's the contact for. And there's books written on each of these different steps, but it's important that you learn how to do that. And if you're not being effective to find out who and not getting those appointments, whether it be a phone interview or whatever, get with some people to help equip you with more tools so that you're more effective in being able to get that contact. Because if you don't get the contact, you're not going to get into the third step, which is present or presentation. In a sales environment, no matter what it is, we have a presentation. Our presentation, most of us focus primarily, first of all, is what? Our resume, right? That's our first presentation. The second presentation, or accompany that presentation, is usually a cover letter. Okay? Those are part of the presentation. Now, part of that presentation is just at the first point of contact, maybe not with the actual decision maker, but it's the first point that we get into. Then we talked about portfolios. Portfolios is part of your presentation. How about your skill sets in interviewing? We did a great exercise last week about interviewing, the practice of the interviewing techniques. Those are part of your presentation. The star stories that you have, that's part of your presentation. Some of the accomplishments that you have. But again, go back to thinking from the customer's shoes. Make sure that those points of presentation appeal to their perspective. Not from, you may have the best portfolio in the world, but it doesn't apply to that particular position. They don't care. You need to make sure that whatever you're presenting, whatever skill set that you have, whatever accomplishments that you have, whatever experience that you've had over the years, that you can relate in some way, shape, or form to that prospective employer on how that will give value to them. Does that make sense? Okay. Number 4, and I'll tell you, the biggest source of failure in most sales processes right there in follow-up.